Welcome, agents of M.A.S.K, to MASKast 63, which continues Season 5 in our quest to review episodes 41 to 50 of the Mobile Armored Strike Command animated series. On this podcast, we will examine episode 48, Quest of the Canyon, which includes our usual play-by-play commentary, along with audio clips mixed in from the actual episode. At the dramatic halfway point and at the finale of the episode, we'll state our opinions and rate using our 1 to 5 scale system. And after we've completed our review, we'll read back listener comments as well as the results of our online poll. If you are new to the show, just visit our website at agentsofmask.com and look for the MASKast assignment in the right-hand column to vote and leave a comment review. We also post our live Google Hangout recording sessions. Actually, we haven't been lately, so I'll skip that part. Oh, crap. And I put the wrong episode name. Quest. Hang on, people. Okay. Quest of the Canyon was originally broadcast on December 4th, 1985 in the United States and features and follows M.A.S.K to Carlsbad Caverns, where Venom plans to find and steal the lost treasure of legendary gunman Jesse James. I'm Jason, one of your hosts of MASKast, and with me as always is my longtime friend and fellow co-host, the Hudson Rourke to my Lord Matrix. Have I knocked you off with these names?
They sound so familiar, and I just can't quite place them. Is this oh man, I can't think of the name of that show now.
Very obscure and very much a knockoff of M.A.S.K.
Is it this man, I can't think of the stupid name. I think is it where the cars had one of the cars had an arm on the top of it? The
Are you thinking Jason the Wheeled Warriors?
Yes.
No, this is not Jason the Wheeled Warriors.
Oh.
This is Vortek, which was a 1996 knockoff of M.A.S.K, and it ran for only one season and had a short tour line, produced also by Kenner.
I don't remember this.
To tell you the truth, I don't remember watching it at all either.
Is it the one with the shield?
It's got like a
I have to look this up now.
Yeah, just look up Vortek. There is a logo out there. They're known as the Undercover Conversion Squad. And in 1996, I think it was Fox. Yeah, I've got it here somewhere. I think it was Fox and Universal, yes, released this, aired on what they called their Power Block on ABC. And very short-lived. Several of these, if you go over to our friend Albert Pineo's website and you look over in the left column there, he's got a tab for Vortek. And if you look at the toy line for the first series, there's a lot of similarities with M.A.S.K. Basically, the premise of the show was they were like this squad of secret agents led by this Hudson Rourke, and their mission was to stop Lord Matrix, who was his older brother, and his evil biomechs from infecting the world with a techno-infectious plague. In their battle with the biomechs, Vortek agents use special computer systems with Vor technology that imbued them with in their vehicles with special powers. And then similar to M.A.S.K, the Vortek agents also had masks and transforming vehicles. So that was a little bit from his website. But if you look at the pictures of the actual toys. For instance, Damian Rourke, his vehicle was the Rattler, and it had a lot of functionality like Gator. It was like a Jeep, and there was uh, a boat or something that came out of it, just like Gator out the front. And then there's some other ones. If you look at the Sonic Stinger, was a red like sports car with wings that came out the bottom, kind of like Manta. The Battle Tracker ATV was a lot like Bullet, with the wheels that folded out and became like a hovercraft. And then, of course, let's see, the Desert Striker. He was the Dune Buggy, the Firefly. You still
I'm
there?
still trying to find it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find it.
I thought I lost you for a minute.
No, when I do Vortec, there it is. No, I don't remember this at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was trying to get to Albert Pernea's home
And he
home
goes over to
site,
his
and it
Facebook.
exactly. So that's
Do
what I was fighting.
do his site /mask, and then it'll take you to the mask page, and then you can click over on the left tabs from there. But the Blazing Fury
I
too.
found it on.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I found it on Google, and I don't remember any
Yeah.
of this. But if
Blazing.
it was issued in '96, then I mean I was already, where was I? I was out in Illinois, and cartoons weren't my life at that point. So, but I do see the one toy line. I do see the Gator similarity. I
Yeah.
see the uh, Blazing Fury, which looked more like that.
Wildcat. Yep.
Yeah, the Wildcat. So
Tow
yeah,
truck. Yep. Ooh, a
and then
lot of
there's the
similarities.
Desert Striker Doom Buggy. That looks a lot like. Uh, Holy cow! My mind is going blank right now.
Firefly.
Yeah, Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, you could probably pull parts off of it if you needed to.
Pretty much. But yeah, I haven't
That's really
seen.
cool.
I haven't seen much of any of Vortec, even on eBay. Very scarce. And then YouTube, I believe, just has the intro to the show. So I've never watched any of the episodes, even though it was short lived. And sounds like from the description too, it was left at a cliffhanger, as they always seem to be after that first season. And then they never get re-upped and never find out what happened. But
that's the I guess the gamble, but that's probably the brainy or the best way to do it is to leave a cliffhanger so that they have to have a way
they
to
want to come back. Yeah.
right. But
So yeah, it's there's a couple other ones, namely franchise called Adam, which was I think another Kenner franchise, which was similar to Mask, and that one might have been released in Europe only. But there's been a couple of those that have. It seems like Kenner tried to not directly have a sequel to Mask, but kind of tie into Mask's popularity and try to spin off something new that just never really took off.
right.
So it's interesting to me to see that they tried to do that, and here Hasbro is finally, we're getting the comic book and we're getting this cinematic universe many years later, but they really haven't tried to do much. Kenner seemed to be doing more to use that concept or brand than Hasbro has, since they've had it.
Right, and that might be something that's Hasbro could have done one of two things. They may not have all the full 100% rights to everything, so they can't do what they would like to. But then again, it could be that
Right.
Hasbro kind of did one of these, well, we're going to just dismantle or dissolve everything but Mask, or bring back
Yeah.
certain little things here and there to see if it's even worth bringing back. If Mask takes off, maybe we can introduce something like Vortec. If it doesn't take off, we're not out anything. No,
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
be that concept as well.
I do understand that. So, well, let's put Vortex to bed, and maybe we'll go into a little bit deeper detail one of these times on the website and dig into it and just see how many similarities there were. It's interesting to me, this whole Vortex and the toy line, and I wish I could find some episodes just to see what it was like in comparison to our show
Right.
as well. But we'll see. We'll save that for another day, though. And what do you say we get our mask on? So I've got a little proposal to you, Wyatt. But before we get into that, I wanted to make sure everybody knows that the second issue of the comic book series is out, and we had hoped to record a podcast with our buddy Bill Ferris over at matttracker.com, actually on his show, and that didn't work out here, but hopefully we'll get that out for too long. The second issue was released on December the 28th, and the third one is slated now for February 15th. And also that new Mask annual comic, that number one issue is scheduled for the following week, February 22nd. And I'm very interested in that. And I think we talked about that real quick, maybe on one of our MASKast chats about the origin, I think, of Cliff Dagger, and also this new take on the original Mask episode, The Death Stone.
Right.
So that should be a fun book. Coming out now in February. I thought we might get it towards the end of January, but I think they got pushed back a couple weeks for issue 3 and this Mask annual. So go pick that up, and we'll try to get our opinions on the second issue pretty soon, either on this show or hopefully over on Bill's show, Behind the Mask, which he mainly posts on YouTube. So be looking for that. And my little proposal to you, Wyatt, is been doing some thinking about our episode reviews and the way we're going. We're almost through season 5. We've got essentially 51 to 60, and then 61 to 65 is kind of those last episodes of the Mask series as we know it. And then you've got episodes 66 through 75, which are the racing series. So I guess my thoughts, I wanted to throw over to you and see your opinion, and even the listeners, if they want to give their take on this as they interact with us during the show. But obviously I want to do 51 to 60 next. And then instead of doing those 5 episodes, I was thinking about maybe waiting and leaving those 5 episodes for the very end of our series review and do the racing episodes next. So if we don't like the racing episodes, we still have those 5 of the Mask series as we know it, that first season at the very end. So what do you think about doing something like that? Or would you rather go in sequential order?
Well, there's a part of me that does want to do the sequential order just because I'm kind of that chronological type. But I think it would actually spice things up if we did flip it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm actually game for your idea to just go ahead and I guess get into the racing series.
Yeah, and then save 61 to 65 for the very end.
Right.
So okay, but it's getting exciting that we've got almost 25, well 20 what is it, 27 after this episode left to go through. So who knows how long that's going to take us. Usually takes us a while. We might get through uh, the next season, through episode 60 by the end of this year. I think that'd be a reasonable goal, with all the chats and the comic reviews and stuff. But I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about the racing series and how I'm going to interact with that. Honestly, I don't remember watching an episode all the way through. I've seen a few here and there in parts just when I'm putting those, tribute videos together and such. But I know they got a different vibe and different overall kind of plot. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that we ended on a high note in case those, were down on that racing series. I've got hopes for it. That it's not all, bad, but I hear,
Right.
I've heard people complain about it for years. Oh, the racing series, they killed Mask.
Well,
So
I think of it like you pointed out. I think we would be jaded and do too much comparing to the original series when we get into the racing series. And I think the break will hopefully kind of at least give us a better neutral idea when we get into it, because that's what I don't want to do is give it an unfair rating as
yeah.
we put it. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm game
Cool.
for it.
Cool. Well, let's do that, and if our listeners are kind of on board with that as well, then season 6 will be 51 to 60, and then season 7 of MASKast will be the racing series 66 to 75, and then we'll have a shortened season. Our last season 8 will be those 5 episodes 61 to 65. So that should be fun. That's hopefully a good plan to put in place, and like I said, hopefully we can get through this next whole season up through 60 by the end of 2017. So what else do you got? Do you got anything else for Get Your Mask On?
Unfortunately, no. Um, I know we've been kind of cross advertising, but I'm going to do it one last time, and that's if you are any fan of anything, any memories rather, come join us over at Memory Jogger. It's our latest podcast. We basically just go down memory lane. That's the best way to put it. We pick a topic and we just run it down to the ground we go 50 different bunny trails. Anyway, so we thought we'd do it at least in a more formal setting, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So it's we're only up to episode 5, but it's really having an impact on me because I'm loving it to remember, how we grew up, or just this last episode was about our mixed VHS tapes. What did we have on it? What did we have the most of recorded on it, and so forth. And that was kind of cool because we kind of jogged our memories in that we're looking at it going, oh wow, I didn't realize I recorded that or this. And,
right.
Well, this is when I first saw that TV show. It was actually on a VHS that Jason recorded or something to that effect. So yeah, just if you want, just go ahead and follow us via iTunes or whatever media outlet you use to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, just search Rediscover the 80s, and that podcast is the Memory Jogger is part of that podcast. And I've got it pretty much everywhere you can find, and if you need the feed, there's a little podcast tab if you go to rediscoverthe80s.com that'll help you get to the feed. But yeah, it's been fun. It's more personal experience than like opinion stuff.
Right.
We run down these episodes, we have an opinion, or we have an opinion on the cartoons that we talk about at the beginning and such. But these are our experiences, our memories of growing up in the 80s and up through high school and college and so forth in the 90s that we talk about on that show. And yeah, it's been great. It's been real fun. So cheap plug, join us over there when you get off of this show.
Right.
and you can hear us on both shows in 2017. So yeah, it's been fun. We've got another episode coming up. We're going to dive into our toy box, and who knows where I'll go from there. So very fun show. But anyway, let's get on the task at hand here, and let's head out to the Grand Canyon in Arizona.
Right. Let's start the MASKast. So we pan onto a forest scene with a tour guide stating they will see it up around the bend, and we don't have any idea what it is. But anyway, as we see T-Bob and Scott enter in, they come upon a large, I'll call it a hillside, when Scott attempts to rush T-Bob, who complains that his feet are hurting. Holy cow. Does it have a Rotec hiding in it or something? Is it causing that type of pain? So, but anyway, T-Bob questions what the big deal is since it's just an old cave. And Scott replies that Carlsbad Cavern is one of the biggest caves in the world, being 20 miles long, and he wants to see what's inside. T-Bob complains about losing his head as the guide and a business suit. I'm sorry, try that again. T-Bob complains about the caves in the world being 20 miles long. Whoa, what the heck?
Rocks in his head.
Third take. Rocks in his head? Is that what he said?
Yeah. He'd have to have rocks in his head if he wants to go in there.
Yeah. So T-Bob complains that he'd have to have rocks in his head if he wants to go in there. And as the guide and a business suit clad Matt, which is odd if you're going caving, walk past in the background. Matt thanks the guide, who is happy to show his appreciation for new members of the park's board of directors. So add that to Matt's resume.
Right.
Inside, as the guide cautions the slippery conditions, Scott ponders which is what, stalagmites on top or stalactites on the bottom. The guide suggests a way to remember them. That is, a stalagmite are on the bottom because they might touch the ceiling. And for the opposite, stalactite, if it doesn't hang real tight to the ceiling, it could fall. So T-Bob jokes, might ceiling, tight floor. And they get a little chuckle. Just then, the guide notices footprints, with Matt seeing them as well, and they need to what the heck did I type? I must have been sleeping. So Matt notices them as well. So the guy states that it wasn't there before, with Matt suggesting that they blasted their way through. They are spooked by a few bats with fear mode engaged on T-Bob, who attempts to run away. Scott mentors him that they probably spooked them. Spooked the bats, rather. T-Bob had a feeling that they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And this is where I put roll my eyes moment.
Yes, I had one in mind too.
And as the flashlight scans around, they notice living quarters, with Matt suggesting that they aren't the first visitors. Scott picks up a real cowboy hat that ends up leaving a dust trail, making Scott sneeze. And that's when we see Matt noticing something. That was supposed to be your cue.
Oh, yeah. He shines a flashlight to like this map on the cave wall, and Matt wants a copy of it, and T-Bob gives him a pencil and a tablet of paper from his storage compartment, real handily. Scott finds this saddlebag with no dust on it and another map inside. Well, the guide recognizes it as a map of the caverns, and Matt deduces it must have been the mystery visitors who brought it in, and wonders what they were looking for. So we head back to the parking lot now, and Thunderhawk, Matt says he found some fingerprints on the saddlebag. I was trying to figure out how he saw that, maybe from the dust that was in the cavern or something. But
Yeah,
anyway,
but I was too much of a pessimist. I'm going, your fingerprints are on it. So is Scott. So why you are seeing fingerprints? Duh.
well, he takes this saddlebag, and the Thunderhawk computer somehow scans it. I wasn't sure how, but it discovers two sets of fingerprints. The first is Jesse James, and the second is Miles Mayhem. Now, this was another puzzling moment for me. I was like, Jesse James's fingerprints was on file
Yeah,
from
really.
the late 1800s.
What
I even go ahead.
what I liked about the when they were reading it out, it was Miles Mayhem was the contemporary outlaw.
Right.
Kind of thought that was little of a chuckle there.
So anyway, Scott gets excited now, and he has his 10-gallon hat on, while T-Bob thinks he needs another 5 gallons to fill it. Another roll my eyes moment there. Matt wonders what no good Mayhem is up to this time, and the computer indicates a possible motive being Jesse James's robbery of $10 million in gold bullion that was never recovered, and the mystery remains unsolved. Well, T-Bob chimes in about the bullion being a lot of chicken soup. Rolling my eyes again. The computer says the James gang had a hideout in Carlsbad Caverns and reminds Matt of something on the wall map. He exclaims, "That's it!" And he immediately calls the best agents for the mission.
Right. And this is where we get Ace Riker with Slingshot, and his little, I guess, caption as they're being called up is he leaves a guy alone as he's learning how to use a drill. Dusty Hayes gets Gator, and he's in the middle of washing dishes, and he leaves, and the sink overflows. And then we get Bruce Sato with Rhino, and he's building a robotic bowling lane and leaves it as it makes a strike and then automatically resets the pins.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes us back to the action where we get basically a panning shot across the canyon where we see Thunderhawk driving to meet up with the team as he drops the duo off, and he even apologizes to them, trying to keep them from getting hurt. Of course, Scott doesn't want to miss out on anything, with T-Bob stating that they've missed 2 game shows on TV. Roll my eyes.
Yes.
M.A.S.K drives off with the duo looking over a balcony, with Scott saying, "It's just not fair that his dad is going after the bad guys while he's stuck up there."
Yeah.
T-Bob asked if he wants to go to the room to watch Attack of the Canary. Scott then uses one of those.
The killer canary.
Yeah, is that what it was? I just heard the canary.
Yeah.
But Scott uses one of them binocular stations you see like on
Right.
for, I don't know, Niagara Falls or whatever.
The large viewmasters.
That's pretty much what they are. And he scouts out the terrain, and then he notices a burro ride station. So now we cut to the duo asking if they have room for them, with T-Bob questioning us. He asks if he expects him to ride on. Yeah, he asks if he expects to ride on one of them, with a donkey licking T-Bob. The duo end up climbing onto their donkeys, with T-Bob getting on backwards, asking where's his head. Roll my eyes. Plenty of those in this episode.
Yes, there were.
They are on this burro convoy, with Scott asking, "Where are they going?" The guide replies, "To the bottom," with T-Bob concerned. Then the guide states they will go down the Colorado River. Scott is elated, with T-Bob feeling like he's an extinct, and as he puts it, an endangered species.
Yes.
Another roll my eyes moment. Yes. And
I don't
then
know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I as we get on to the next scene here, it just seemed like that whole scene went on forever. I don't know. It seemed like Scott and T-Bob had a lot of screen time in the first half, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but I'm waiting for Venom to pop in, to get their side of the story, and it doesn't come until after the break.
Well, I'm going to leave my comments because this is one of those that might be interesting towards the end for me, unless you somehow convince me otherwise. But yes,
I guess we'll find out.
There was way too much screen time for the duo. I mean, I like the duo. I know Scott and more so T-Bob get bad raps, but yeah, they had their turn. Let's go back to Mask.
Yeah.
So now we're at the cavern.
Right. We finally get back to the cavern, and the Mask team spots a mine entrance. Matt says inside is their clue to the gold, and Dusty hoping that varmint Mayhem hasn't found it already. Well, Ace, he suggests every time Mayhem gets gold fever, it gives them a headache. I was like, oh, geez, he's going to get in on it too. Bruce, though, he suggests checking it out first with the team standing guard for Mayhem. Matt agrees, but warns him they could be inside. So Bruce says he will give him, if they give him any tricks, he'll give them a treat. All these puns in this episode. Anyway, yes. Bruce, he kind of hops down the mountainside. He's got his lifter mask under one arm. I'm not sure why he didn't choose to wear it. But after entering, he doesn't see any clues so far or any signs of Venom. He hears a noise and spots another map on one of the mine cars. After examining it shortly, he hears the noise again and he puts on his mask. He shines a light above and sees a puma. As it lunges forward towards Bruce, he falls backwards into this mine car and begins rolling backward down the track with this puma giving chase. And as it gets near to him, Bruce finally kind of wakes up. I guess it kind of knocked him out there when he fell backwards into this car. And he quickly pulls his legs inside the car as it speeds up now. He turns around to look forward, and he sees a very long hill. So he's now on a Indiana Jones-like roller coaster mine car ride.
That's what I was thinking.
Says something I really couldn't understand. It sounded like, man, am I ever hot? Or I couldn't understand what he was saying. Anyway, we see this huge gap in the tracks ahead across this bridge. And as Bruce rapidly approaches this gap, we fade to the dramatic commercial break. So let me get your impressions of the first half of the episode and where you stand as far as a rating.
Well, right now I'm at a solid 3. The story is good because we get the Jesse James hiding the gold. The kind of the catch of that with the Wells Fargo coach being robbed, the buried treasure, and we know that Miles Mayhem is interested. At least he's. It looks like that's his plot for this episode. There's some good graphics, and they seem to spend a little bit more time with the duo in that burro ride, and then they spent, to me, an excessive amount of time with Bruce's roller coaster ride. It just didn't seem quite right. It just lengthy is probably the right word.
Mm-hmm.
I did like seeing that we now have a new agent and vehicle, but I'm still at a loss why, because this is M.A.S.K, why did Bruce not use his mask? Again, this is one of those other ones where it's just slapping your forehead. Come on.
Yeah.
He could have lifted the puma and, knocked it out against the the wall. Of course, Doug probably wouldn't have agreed with that. Um, sorry, Doug, just had to say it. But
Doug is an animal rights kind of guy.
he
Yeah.
is. So just give him a
Loves
love
his
tap,
kitties.
whatever. So anyway, uh, yeah. So the coaster is, it kind of looks fun, and I'm sure they were going for the kid side of it. They weren't going for the adults looking at it, but still, it just looked like he was going to go on an excessive track ride when he could have done. Even if the puma did leap at him, lift her, get me out of here, and just bubbled his way out the front door, back door, whatever route,
Yeah.
and be done. Instead, we just, get the roller coaster ride. T-Bob and his worried feet, or his worrying, and then his feet hurt. This one got to me. I can usually tolerate him for a while, and he was already on my nerves
Yeah.
with this episode. Maybe that was intentional, but
Well,
yeah, just
the jokes just add up, and then everything he almost says or does gets on your nerves.
right. So basically, it just boiled down to, especially with the excessive time. To me, it just seemed like they were trying to make up time for something. Like they wrote this out lengthwise and
Yeah.
then discovered they didn't have enough material, so they left it in there instead of cutting it to
Yeah.
whatever. So that's mine. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I'm close to you. Just way too many puns, and it was T-Bob, it was Bruce, it was Ace. There's just it spread like wildfire in this. And like I mentioned before, it was all M.A.S.K in the first half of the episode, which kind of set up the mystery pretty good. But I think that's why we had all the bad jokes. Is just because Scott and T-Bob were practically around for the entire first half of the episode. The fingerprint match, that again, we're looking through this as adults and not kids.
Right.
Kids, we wouldn't care. But I'm like, I had to go on and look it up, Google it, and fingerprints came about as like identification just around the turn of the 20th century. So the other thing that got me though was, maybe the tour guide should have known the legend a little bit better, since he's giving him the personal tour.
Right.
And then maybe he just identifies the items around as, oh, these have to be from the James gang. It could have been that easily identified without any, have to do his fingerprints, and you could just deduce, that, oh, Mayhem touched this, and just do his fingerprints. You could have just left him out of it.
Maybe the M.A.S.K computer was feeling jaded and needed some more screen time since Kit was eating up all of it. I'm really just joking here.
The agents arrived a little quick for me. I know they're in the States, and maybe Boulder Hill is nearby. Like, we set it up close to Las Vegas, but I don't know. It seemed like he called them, and they must have left like Boulder Hill and been the same distance as wherever Matt was at the cave, because he pulled up to the motel and they're sitting there. So I tried not to let that bug me too much, but the drama at the break was okay, but I don't know. It just made Bruce appear clumsy, that he fell back into this, and oh, woe is me, and got your lifter mask on, like you said. Why don't you use it? And Matt warned him at the beginning when he went down to check it out himself. Venom could be inside, so why not put your mask on then? That kind of bugged me too. Why just carry it around? Oh, I hear a noise. Okay, let me put it on now. You're going into potentially danger, as soon as you step in. So put on your stupid mask. I guess the thing that really kind of brought the rating down for me, and I pulled it down to a 3.5. I took a 1.5 off. Is just I didn't have many notes on good things. Like you said, I'm glad we got a new agent. And that was a pretty cool sequence when they rolled out. They had that angle, which would be one that they used in a ton of 80s television shows where they put the camera in the ground and the vehicles
Yeah.
drive over it, that was
Right.
really cool. I like that. And they had a couple inventive shots in this episode, but that was about it. I just wasn't really got excited or had any wow moments so far. So I pulled it down 1.5 points. I'm at 3.5, and we'll see where we go from here. So
So that means that we are returning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're returning. We see Bruce finally using his lifter to bend the rails. Again, I don't understand this, but whatever. But he bends the rails up to create a Dukes of Hazzard ramp. When he lands, he jokes that he was always good at making ends meet. And here's another markdown I gave it. This awful reverb that they gave the mask voice is just awful.
Yeah, I mean it's just not consistent. They've used it before, but it makes them sound robotic almost.
Well, not even it's just annoying. They had the little bit of an effect early on when we originally met, this voice, and now it's just gotten to a point where they're not in a cathedral, gee whiz. It's just a mask mic. That's all you have to worry about.
Yeah.
Take out the bass a little bit, and you got it.
Yeah, the kind of a telephone effect.
Yeah.
Almost.
So anyway, then he notices. He continues down the track and states that things could get worse. Then he notices a wooden wall where he says that it's time to quote T-Bob. Whoa! We then see him eject out of the side of the cavern, and outside, with Dusty cheering him on, saying, "Let him ride, Bronco Bruce." He ends up crashing into some thick brush with Matt, I guess caring for his troop. Are you okay? Bruce replies that he thinks so. And then he grabs a board stating it's the clue, which is the map that they've been looking for. Matt agrees, and instead of helping to take him out of the brush or
give me it, let's go.
It's straight out. Matt agrees, but asks about basically the episode, what happened to him. And Bruce replies that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single fall, with him removing his mask and simply walking out of frame. Again, that could have been handled different, I guess.
I had to get one of those Bruce sayings in there at least.
Oh yeah, at least. Dusty asks, "What in tarnation is he blabbering about?" Matt suggests that they study the map. And for kids, this probably was a fun journey. And this is my notes for the whole roller coaster episode. Like I said, for the kids, it was probably a fun journey for us to watch. It was entertaining. But like I said before, as an adult, there was plenty of opportunities to use lifter and to avoid all of this. But
yeah, I also like that. Matt's usually his interpreter,
right?
And this time,
he just ignores him.
When Dusty was like, what's he talking about? Matt just says, "Oh, let's just take a look at the map," because apparently he didn't know what that journey meant, other than smashing through the wall and probably getting a concussion.
Right. So we're back to our donkey train, and T-Bob is crying that he's going to fall and end up as flat as a pie tin. Scott tells him to stop whining. Amen, brother. Just about time. And to stop, and to open his eyes as they've reached the bottom. As they stop, T-Bob is grateful as he is very sore and advises that they install elevators. And now he's sore.
Right.
The donkey voices his opinion as Scott translates that he's just as ready to get rid of T-Bob. We see several inflatable rafts with Scott telling T-Bob to pull himself together. Then T-Bob replies that he gets seasick with puddles. And this is where I took I'm sorry?
Stepping in puddles, yep.
Yeah, so this is where I went the Batman route and said, "Holy annoying T-Bob." So now we have reached 12 minutes and 45 seconds, and we get our Venom coming into the picture.
Right. We finally hear that Venom theme that it seemingly has been taken forever to get to, and we meet up with Mayhem and Rax and Dagger and Bruno Shepard in front of a row of several cave entrances. Excuse me. Bruno asks Mayhem how long they have to sit in this hole in the ground. Well, Mayhem points at him sternly, saying, "Until he says otherwise, Shepard." And that it is in one of the caves, which, again, we know it's gold or something, gold bullion, I guess, whatever at this point. Rax now complains that it could take a year to search all of these cave entrances. Mayhem kind of just ignores him. He looks at his watch and he's waiting for 3 o'clock sharp. And he looks up at the sun, and as Bruno wonders why he's concerned about the time when they are trying to hunt for gold, well, the sun finally casts a shadow off this large pointed rock, and it points to the correct cave entrance. And this reminded me of the movie National Treasure, if you've ever seen that, with Nicolas Cage, where they find this clues and stuff on the back of the Declaration of Independence, and they go to Independence Hall and they have to be there at a certain time, and it points at this brick and they find these glasses, and I don't know, reminded me of that. I'm sure M.A.S.K stole that from somebody else, but that's kind of one of those tropes where they, you wait for the sun to cast a shadow, and
right
there it is. Anyway, so they find the entrance to the cave. Mayhem says Mayhem says it's just like on the mine car, and that's where they'll find Jesse James's gold. And they all run off to their vehicles and they enter the cave, and they come upon this large pile of rubble, with Mayhem assessing that no one has been in this cave for decades. Dagger exits Jackhammer, and he wonders where the gold is. Mayhem tells him they wouldn't leave it in the open, stupid. And Dagger then looks at Rax and says, "He must be in a good mood because he usually calls me an idiot." I found that kind of comical.
It was.
Looking at the rubble now, Mayhem thinks that would be a good hiding place for the gold, and he tells Bruno to get in Scorpion and move those boulders. Well, Bruno hops in to the vehicle. He throws it in this reverse and does a 180, and he activates this claw arm from the trunk, which is, I think, the first time we've seen this.
Yes.
He starts clearing away these rocks, just kind of swinging it back and forth.
I found it kind of comical because it sounds like, if you listen to it, at least for the sound effects, it looks like he is full on like ramming it to the wall or this rubble. It's not like a gently coming up to it with a backhoe. He just full on. I'm gonna take this out.
You would think with that claw, he'd be just like, I'll grab a boulder here and a boulder here, and no, he's just swinging it back and forth. And at one point, the camera is above, or the point of view is above, and Mayhem and the other agents are just standing there. I'm like, you guys better move out of the way, because all this boulders and stuff is going to fall down the side of this rubble and flatten you.
Right.
But anyway, so after he starts swinging this thing, it makes this dust cloud. And let me find my place here. And it causes Mayhem to start coughing. Well, he wonders where the gold is, and as he is about ready to say it again, then he sees some of the loot uncovered, and he's amazed. Wow, I think he says,
Yes.
So we head back to M.A.S.K in their vehicles. Bruce says they need to make better time because it's past 3 o'clock. So, we take that as they've deciphered the minecar clue like Venom has. Slingshot is in the lead, and Matt asks Ace how much farther, and he says it's not far, that he used to take the same shortcut while he was rock collecting as a kid. So that gave us a little insight that he, essentially knows the area.
Right.
As they travel a little bit further, he sees a large boulder in their path, joking he must have missed that one as a kid. Matt says, no problem, and he's going to shed a little light on the subject, quote unquote. And he pulls Thunderhawk ahead and opens the doors, and the door lasers shoot to like pulverize this boulder so they can kind of continue through it. And then once they get through that, they come upon the same kind of series of cave entrances that Venom was at. And I can keep going, or do you want to take it
No,
from
I didn't know
there?
if I heard you tapping your keyboard, so I thought you were
I had to
taking
scroll
out.
down a little bit, but if you want
No,
to take it from there.
that's okay. So Matt, I'm sorry. So the team arrives, but we see that the shadow has moved away. So Ace is saying, well, you already said that. Never mind. Matt suggests that his mask can give him some sound advice. So with Spectrum on, no command, we look through his visor as he scans the caves and comes to the correct cave, but there's no heat signature, there's no
Yeah.
icon, there's no nothing that identifies which one's the right cave.
There was no explanation, right? I mean, if you're gonna track some, gasoline fumes or I don't know, anything like that, heat signatures, like you said, let us know how you're able to find it out. It's not just, let me put on the mask and the mask will tell me.
That's it.
Well, okay.
So anyway, so the team jumps into their vehicles and roll out. On the river, we see the rafting fun with T-Bob clutching Scott and screaming along the rapids. He ends up screaming and asks if the river can stop so they can get off. We cut to the lead pulling in the raft and saying that the ride is over. Scott looks at T-Bob and asks if he's all right after water is gushing out of his vest and his knees. Scott enthusiastically says that he'll never forget that ride as long as he lives. T-Bob jokes that at this rate, it'll be 15 minutes. Now, that was actually decent.
Yeah, it was.
As they walk up the hill, they come across old Indian drawings on a wall. Scott notices that they lead into a cave and encourages T-Bob to investigate, with T-Bob refusing. Scott suggests another trip in the river, so T-Bob cries the river and says, hey, follow him.
Lead the way. That was actually good too. I
Yeah,
mean, when they do the humor without all the puns, they can come up with some decent stuff.
right. And
It's not hilarious by any means, but
sadly,
you
I had
know.
a Three Stooge moment. I'm thinking of how Mo always did it. I'll lead the way. Go right ahead.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So anyway, so we're back in the cave with Venom. Mayhem instructs to keep moving, and here walks in our duo. Scott asks if T-Bob hears something, with T-Bob replying, not really, which to me, I actually read into this. I'm thinking he's like, I didn't hear nothing. Nope, 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 nope.
Right. Yeah.
Scott suggests that they need to stop them. T-Bob's more concerned about stopping Scott. Bruno continues to hand excavate and grab the gold, with the duo tiptoeing down, grabbing a few old mining tools and a barrel, which kind of perplexed me when I saw that happening. Dagger nearly hits Rax, and Rax complains about it. Dagger responds saying he better watch himself. And as Rax and Dagger begin to argue, we see T-Bob pop out from behind Jackhammer. T-Bob whispers that he hopes the gunpowder still has some bang left in it as he pours it into Jackhammer's tank. Rax sees them and shouts, "Spies!" Scott yells, "Hurry!" While Miles shouts to get them. Bruno jumps in Scorpion, but it rapidly becomes disabled as Scott has wedged all of these hand tools that he was carrying into the front left wheel well.
Mm-hmm.
However, Bruno attempts to grab them with the Scorpion trunk claw. We now hear engines with Mayhem saying that someone's coming. M.A.S.K enters the scene with Matt. Did that sound right? I'll say it again. M.A.S.K
Okay.
enters the scene with Matt saying, "Let's put a stop to Mayhem's gold rush." Tiger says, "Leave everything to me." He races Jackhammer around. Then we hear an explosion, but it ends up really just smoking up the engine. It really didn't like big,
Yeah.
huge fireball, nothing. Anyway, but he crashes into, well, you guessed it, poor old Rax and Piranha. Mayhem shouts, "You fools! What do you think you're doing?" as M.A.S.K enters the cavern. Matt seems confused by the scene, but Switchblade blasts at M.A.S.K with Rhino retaliating with the stack lasers. Um, one blast, and Mayhem wants to retreat again.
Mm-hmm.
Switchblade shoots a hole in the side of the cavern, and the Venom agents make their way to grab hold of the skids. Ace engages Boomerang, which shoots this whirling laser that ends up just cutting the bag of the gold. It sends the gold plummeting to the ground, and then we see Gator race through, or I'm sorry, we see Gator race after Switchblade with Miles shouting, "They won't catch us now," as he basically uses Switchblade's lasers to drill his way through the wall. And then we are
Yeah.
taken outside.
Yeah. Well, before I before I go any further, um, I was like, okay, so Mayhem doesn't have a problem actually hitting the target when it comes to making this new entrance, or exit, which I didn't really think he needed in the first place. He could just kind of fly over M.A.S.K, but
Right.
he can really blast his way around when he needs it. But when it comes to trying to shoot one of the M.A.S.K vehicles, he can't hit the broadside of a barn. So,
No.
uh, and then I thought it was cool. One thing that I did like, you know, they usually, when their vehicles are disabled and Mayhem's the only one there, they grab onto the landing skids. And this time it looked like they were actually climbing up inside Switchblade. Did you catch that at all?
If that's what happened, it makes sense because from here on out, I didn't see them anywhere.
Right. And I don't,
So
that's what I
I
took
didn't see them
away.
climb into Switchblade.
They were, to me, they kind of were climbing up and disappeared, and it looked like they were climbing into the bottom. There's like a compartment there or something. I'm not sure exactly where they were gonna hang out inside Switchblade because it's basically a one person cockpit. But I don't know. I liked that a lot better than just. It seems ridiculous them hanging off the side of a helicopter skid, flying away. But
Right.
anyway, we'll get back to the episode now. So uh, after Switchblade blasts his way to the other side of this new tunnel, Gator gives chase. Dusty fires a few shots of the roof cannon at Switchblade as it converts to jet mode and basically flies away. Dusty realizes he hasn't been paying attention to where he's driving, and he sails Gator off the side of the steep cliff towards the river. He converts Gator in mid-air, which I thought was kind of cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the boat kind of splashes down safely on top of the water with the whole chassis of Gator just sinking to the bottom. Dusty kind of gets caught up in the rapids. Apparently, he forgot that he's got a power boat. There's actually an engine on the thing,
Right.
and he eventually hits this huge rock in the middle of the rapids, and it ejects him right into the water. And he and the Gator boat go sailing over this waterfall. Well, apparently Thunderhawk gave chase because we see the Thunderhawk converting and Bruce from the passenger seat using lifter to save Dusty. And it seemed Dusty was kind of pissed about it.
Yeah.
He just he's floating up in the air. And he folds his arms, and I think he says something like, "That was a quick dip" or something. I don't
Yeah. He
know.
says it was just a quick dip.
Anyway, this scene kind of fades into the regrouping scene at the very end, and Scott and T-Bob are on hand with the rest of the team, with Scott saying it's too bad Venom got away, but at least M.A.S.K saved Jesse James's lost gold. T-Bob says maybe next time Jesse will be more careful where he puts it, as we get a nice panning shot upwards over the canyons with them standing around, and we fade out. It's the end of the episode. I was surprised, before we get into the PSA, I was surprised that here Scott and T-Bob are, and Matt's not scolding them, Usually they regroup and, what the hell are you guys doing here?
Pretty much.
Kind of a moment.
Well,
We didn't get that.
And it, for me, I kind of took it as he was that Scott was kind of acting like the coach, because they're all huddled up and he's the one making all the comments.
He disabled 3 of the vehicles, he and T-Bob. Anyway, so we get to the PSA.
Right, and this is where we find Scott in his room reading to T-Bob about Jesse James, so at least it ties in this time.
Mm-hmm.
When Matt walks in, Matt comments that he thought he heard him reading, but asks why the light isn't on. Scott replies that he simply didn't go through the trouble. Matt basically just kind of advises him that reading without proper lighting is bad for your eyes. Scott replies, "Thanks for showing me the light." And he clicks on his desktop light. And that leads us to the conclusion of our episode.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your rating?
Well, I was kind of disappointed. I left feeling it could have been better, just based on what we've seen so far to this episode. I pulled it down another 1.5, landed on a 2. The good part, even though it was clumsy for Dusty to drive off a cliff, I kind of liked that gear transformation, in midair. Yeah. That was a little inventive there. They were thinking ahead, but I also kind of liked the switchblade conversion from behind as Gator was shooting at him. They kind of swung back and forth and converted and shot it, into the sky. That was pretty cool. And I kind of did like that Scott and T-Bob were essentially helpful, sabotaging the vehicles after just, following them around on their sightseeing trip for most of the episode. Finally came back into play, but that was... I did like the ending shot too. I actually did a panorama of that. And there were some really cool point of view shots from up in the caverns and stuff, looking down on the teams and that kind of a thing. So they were creative with them being around that, mountainous area and such, the canyons and all of that. So I'll give a thumbs up to the animation team on this one. I didn't see any mistakes or anything like that. But I just wasn't into the episode, I didn't like that lifter trick after the break, like we talked about a little bit there. I always think of lifter as lifting objects and not taking something and bending it. Right. And I didn't remember him ever doing that before. I would have liked him just, let me look down and I'll lift my own self or the cart, across or something.
Or maybe he's immune to lifting himself. Maybe that's the whole problem. We just don't know it.
Well, I guess that could be. All right, the thing that bugged the crap out of me with this episode, they spent all this time collecting the gold, and Mayhem was amazed. Ooh and ah. So $10 million in gold was a sack full that Dagger could carry around. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Something like that, they should have been shoving in the back of Jackhammer and like weighted it down. It was so heavy, 10 million in gold. And it's like he's Santa Claus going out there.
That's it.
I was like, that's just ridiculous. And Dusty, they did mention when the call up, when they did the call up about why they're there, and Dusty was there because of his Western knowledge or something, and there's just no need for him there. I mean, it just seemed like he was a liability
Pretty
the
much.
whole episode. He's driving stuff off the cliff. He's ruining his vehicles. They have to save him. You know, they could have just had Ace in this episode and Bruce, and that would have been fine. But I don't know. It just made him look like an idiot. And yeah, he's kind of hick, country, backwoods, redneck, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But he's not exactly stupid. He's a little careless, and he's a stunt driver, so you got to be a little crazy to to do some stuff like that. But
Right.
I don't know. Couple other things I mentioned. No scolding from Matt after Venom got away on Scott and T-Bob, and then the humor was a little bit better in the second half, but there were still way, way, way too many roll my eyes moments. We mentioned about Spectrum, not no explanation on that. The timeline of Mask. Okay, so when Venom initially enters the cave, it's like the next scene, and they're at that rubble digging for gold. And then the next scene we get M.A.S.K like pulling up, and they enter, and then we get this whole sidebar with Scott and T-Bob and them entering the cave. And then M.A.S.K shows up. I'm like, how long did it take M.A.S.K to show up to that? Venom was like right there, and it seemed like M.A.S.K got lost in the cave for a while there or something. I don't know. That just kind of bugged me. It wasn't too much of a big deal. But and then I guess the last disappointment, and I'll turn it over to you. When we typically get introduced to a new agent, we get to learn a little bit more about them. Yeah, okay, so he works at a hardware store. We found that out. We got to see him use his mask. That was pretty cool. To see exactly what it does. Obviously, a boomerang mask shoots a boomerang. But we didn't get any slingshot, any conversion, anything with that. So I was kind of disappointed that Ace's debut wasn't a little more utilized than just him being around that area as a kid. It seemed like we typically get some more vehicles and mask use when the agents are introduced. So I was kind of bummed about that. I wanted to see Slingshot in action, but hopefully we'll get to see it in another episode. Anyway, I landed on 2. I'll quit talking, and you can lay out your stuff. I know I had a lot to say.
Well, you pretty much took everything I was going to say, but I landed at a 2. I teetered on making it lower, but I stopped at 2 for now.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was a little teetering. What was getting me was, and it really wasn't T-Bob, but he was getting annoying. It was the fact that there were so many disconnects. Like you were saying, there was the whole, why did they not use Ace's vehicle? I mean, they brought it along, so why not use it? Dusty, what was the point of him being there? In fact, even his whole episode was just as nice and cool as it wasn't necessary whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then when he was, even during his whole episode, why did he not call for help when he got, bumped off the?
Right.
There was no call, no nothing. It's like, hey, guys, I'm a little, I think I'm getting water. I'm gonna have to go swimming or something. Nothing. It's just like, I hope they find me. I'm not gonna say anything. Um,
Yeah,
anyway,
I didn't like it.
um, he and even when he's rescued with Lifter, he's to me he's kind of casually just sitting. It's
Yeah,
not like he's being picked up and it's like discombobulated or anything. He just la 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 la. I'll just wait till I land. La la la.
about time you guys got here.
Pretty much. Um, Scott and T Bob were very useful when, like you said, disabling the vehicles, but getting them to be useful took a lot of heartache with the whole donkey episode, the rafting episode, and T
Well
Bob's
said.
whining, and
Well said.
it was just crap. Um, the time spent watching Venom, and there was a lot of these little things where like the donkey ride, then watching Venom climb onto the skids. To me, it was just like, really, we're going to sit here and watch while we wait for M.A.S.K to go. Now it's time to go. It just seemed like
Right.
it was too
Right.
long. Um, and you mentioned the sack of gold, which was, I know it's for kids, so they're not, we don't, as kids we don't see the reference, but now
Right.
as an adult we're like, man, you would have needed like five, switchblades to haul that load.
Yeah.
That at least the way they emphasize it.
Right.
Um, the spectrum use, we already hit on that. Um, overall, I maybe you would liken this to me, but for me, this was my Panda Power episode. I just not it. I took me a lot to not make it lower.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worthless of an episode, but it wasn't. It wasn't
Yeah.
one
I
of
mean,
the shining stars of the episodes either.
right. And like I said before, there's usually a few things that they throw in some of these bad episodes or ones that aren't as engaging, that I pull out. Then I'm like, oh, okay, that was cool the way they did that, and this and that, and like I said, there was a few cool scenes in there, and yeah, we got a new agent, but what else was there? That was great. Nothing. So it was just all those jokes and everything just kind of weighted it, and then you throw in these kind of stupid things like with Dusty, and it's like it's definitely not a good episode. Just how bad are you going to put it? That kind of
Right.
a thing. That was my whole mentality of it. But I guess let's go on to see what some other people said. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good. I know we have quite a few over on the over on our blog. We have our buddy Anna.
Yeah. Well, let's do the poll first. There was
Okay.
seven votes there.
Actually, there should be 8. I didn't vote till now. So
Okay. So we've got 8 votes. Somebody actually rated this a 5. And then we had 3 threes and 4 twos. So most of the people thought it was either okay or bad. And like you said, we've got several comments here on the blog. And there's actually a couple over on Facebook too that I'll mention
right,
as we go along.
one's a kind of a repeat. If you look, um, Jade Von Wer,
Mm-hmm.
he also made comments on
She,
our she sorry
I think
uh,
she.
made it basically kind of a parallel comment
Oh, I
on
see.
Facebook as well. A couple
Okay.
differences, but not much. But let's go ahead and start with Anna. She
Mm-hmm.
writes, "This is an okay episode, but it's not among the best. M.A.S.K has many episodes about Venom trying to find lost treasures. Probably a little too many, in my opinion. Some of them are very good, like the Lost Riches of Rio. But this episode wasn't really that interesting. The best scene was Bruce's ride on the mine cart, which was very entertaining. I also liked it when the mass computer compared Miles Mayhem to Jesse James by naming him a contemporary outlaw. Still, I don't think this episode contained anything interesting or special to make it stand out from the other treasure hunting episodes." Very
Good call
right.
on that
Very
one.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we got John Trigonis. I've been interacting with John some over on Twitter too. Appreciate his feedback. He says, I gave this one a 2. It's not that there were necessarily too many flaws, but that there was one severe one. We are introduced to a new M.A.S.K vehicle, Slingshot, and we never see it transform. It's a van from the first minute we see it to the last. With Scorpion, we got to see its tail being used in this episode, so that was something. And we did get to see Ace Riker's boomerang M.A.S.K do its thing, even if but briefly. But not showing Slingshot in battle mode, that's not cool. And for that, mainly, it gets a 2 for me. Aside from that, there are the minor flaws that as a kid you just don't pay mind to, but as an adult, and as you fellows have demonstrated time and again, there are things that just don't make sense or aren't fleshed out. My favorite here is when Matt says, "There's something about the map we saw on the wall," then exclaims, "That's it," and proceeds to select the M.A.S.K agents best suited for the mission. What mission? I laughed out loud at that one. Yeah, he didn't really explain what he saw or anything right there.
No.
On a positive note, there was some great transformations in this episode, namely Gator's transformation in Free Fall, and especially Switchblade as Mayhem makes his escape. The animation was on point. So I pretty much agree with John.
Yes.
And then we'll turn this one over to Mac Mel, a.k.a. Jade Von Weir.
Right. This is one of my favorite M.A.S.K episodes. I think one of 3 I remembered watching as a kid, then as a grown-up on site. Other 2, Cold Fever and Dragonfire. The main scene I remembered featured Bruce, happened with Cold Fever too, but more obvious reasons. That cart ride through the caverns had me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. While some of the physics of it probably wouldn't wash in real life, it was fun to hear his comments and see them face a challenge that wasn't Venom's fault. My 2 beefs, if minor due to the necessity of the scene cart. I think they tried to imply Bruce was going to end up falling into the bottomless pit, a real cavern feature. But there are no tracks anywhere near that vicinity, just a ladder that was built to try and reach the bottom. It's also on public display with plenty of places he could have used lifter to move something, say railing, to grab for safety.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And I don't understand Bruce's comment between making ends meet and quoting T-Bob due to the slightly loud incidental music. Another funny moment is at the end of it. You have Matt panicked for Bruce, and Dusty is essentially cheering Bruce on riding the cart. Both are quite true to character. Matt's reaction to Bruce's platitude in that instance was fitting. You could tell he understood but wasn't going to translate it. The waterfall rescue is another one of those scene doesn't match physics reality, but it was fun. I do wonder, though, if they were going to make it where Dusty didn't like flying of any kind, because while vocally he's relieved Bruce saved the day, he got his arms crossed like, great, here I go flying again. Ace's introduction on the M.A.S.K team here was well done, but it's sadly the only one of 2 episodes I actually like him in, other Everglades Oddity. It wasn't his sounding like John Wayne either, but he suffered the same curse as Jacques, Julio, and Calhoun, put into the scenes far too late to really get to know them or use them properly. This one and the other mentioned he fit the plots well. But then later on we see him in the racing series whining to our rabbit of all things about some of the things he's dealing with.
Okay.
I do like the way he was drawn in both, however. Never was fond of the toy where he had gray hair. Granted, Alex is older than the others, but the toy, if drawn for TV, would probably make Ace look even older, more like Hannibal Smith on the A-Team.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Well,
that's a that those are great comments. And like we said, we're no experts, and we may score it rotten where some like this episode, and we appreciate
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah, and to go back to the second point there about Bruce's comment, making ends meet, that is a saying, and I took
Right.
that as to making the tracks meet together uh, in a way. And then T-Bob is all the time screaming and whoa, that kind of
Right.
thing. So that's where I think the quoting T-Bob
Comes into place.
yeah, that's why they threw that in there. As he's doing that loud whoa as he's going through that uh, that wooden dead end there in the tunnel.
Right.
So yeah, that was some very good thought put into that comment, and we do appreciate that. And that was the one that I saw over on Facebook as well. There was another one from Lucas Gwynn who said after the team was assembled, they should have had the M.A.S.K energizing montage before Matt met up with Bruce, Dusty, and Ace.
Right.
I would agree, and I said back to him that it happens less and less as the series goes on. Wish it could have been more standard. And then he replied back, not only did they stop the M.A.S.K energizing montage, but they also stopped using the theme for when Matt Tracker assembled the M.A.S.K team a lot less as well. And yeah, there's two themes that they do during those call-ups, and the original one is basically the M.A.S.K theme song that we hear in the intro, that beginning,
Right.
the very very beginning, when we see Boulder Hill and that green grid, and then there's this other upbeat kind of, almost sounds like a ringtone to a phone if you listen to it, like real MIDI.
Right.
Like Nokia ringtone to it. When I hear that, and they use that off and on, I guess more later on in the series here. But yeah, it's just a shame that they didn't have some standard stuff, like we've said time and again, like Voltron, and every time we got Mumra in Thundercats, it was ancient spirits of evil.
Right.
We we got that whole transformation sequence every time, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's disappointing, especially when you see, especially in this episode, all this excessive, drawn out uh, things like the donkey train and so forth. They could have easily squeezed the whole
Yeah.
call up and the platform. Everything could have been fit in better. And it's just like,
Yes.
we're just gonna go on vacation and make this as painful as possible.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, hopefully we've got a couple of episodes left in season 5 of MASKast 49 and number 50. Hopefully we'll end on a better note than this,
I hope so.
because yeah, it was very disappointing. But anyway, we're gonna go head on to number 49 in our next show, called Follow the Rainbow. Venom goes to Ireland to find the lost treasure of High King Brian Boru at the end of the rainbow. So we're going to go international again, as we have quite a bit of the time during this season, and be over to Ireland and see if it's going to be a magical one, or if this is just kind of one of those lost treasure mysteries again, which I would kind of lean towards on this one. But I guess we'll find out, though.
Right.
So anyways, well, we appreciate everybody listening. And again, if you want to check out our other podcast, feel free to do that, called Memory Jogger, on the Rediscover the 80s podcast. And like I said earlier, too, we're hoping to get an episode together to talk some more about the comics with Bill Ferris. So be on the lookout for that, and we'll tease that as we get closer to that. but that's going to do it for this show.
Right. And once again, this has been a great episode, at least in discussing it. Maybe not in the ratings, but in discussing it. And we always encourage your feedback, your thoughts on the episodes, and M.A.S.K in general. Anything M.A.S.K, please. That's what we're here for. Agents of M.A.S.K, please share your thoughts and memories with us there. Otherwise, I want to thank all of our fans and listeners for joining us. And on behalf of Jason, I am Wyatt, and thanks for listening to MASKast.